December 21, 1970. The Oval Office of the White House. President Richard Nixon sits behind his desk, undoubtedly dealing with pressing matters of national importance. Suddenly, the doors open, and in walks Elvis Presley, dressed in a velvet suit, complete with a gold belt buckle and oversized sunglasses. What could possibly bring the king of rock and roll to the most powerful office in America? This is the bizarre and hilarious story of how Elvis Presley met President Nixon, in what has become one of the most iconic and surreal moments in American history. The story begins on a flight to Washington, D.C. Elvis, troubled by the rising drug culture and what he perceived as the moral decay of America, decided to take matters into his own hands. Grabbing hotel stationery, he wrote a 6-page letter to President Nixon, offering his services as a federal agent at large. Here's an excerpt from the letter. Dear Mr. President, I can and will be of any service that I can to help the country out. I have done an in-depth study of drug abuse and communist brainwashing techniques, and I am right in the middle of the whole thing where I can and will do the most good. He ended the letter by requesting a meeting with Nixon and asking for one very specific item: a federal narcotics badge. According to Elvis, the badge would give him authority to carry guns and travel internationally as an undercover agent. For Elvis, it wasn't just a badge. It was a symbol of power. When Elvis arrived unannounced at the gates of the White House, the guards were understandably confused. I'm here to see the president, Elvis reportedly said, in his unmistakable southern drawl. He handed over his handwritten letter, and somehow, it made its way to Nixon's aides. They were skeptical, but also intrigued. Mr. President, one aide said, Elvis Presley is requesting a meeting. He wants to help fight drugs and communism. Nixon, initially baffled, saw the potential for good PR and reluctantly agreed. Fine, Nixon grumbled, but keep it short. The scene in the Oval Office was something out of a comedy sketch. Elvis walked in wearing a purple velvet suit with a high collar, a gold belt the size of Texas, and his signature sunglasses. Nixon, known for his stiff demeanor, looked visibly uncomfortable. Mr. President, Elvis began, extending his hand. It's an honor to meet you, sir. Nixon shook his hand, clearly unsure what to make of the king. Elvis then launched into a passionate monologue about the dangers of drug abuse and the negative influence of the counterculture movement. He spoke of his desire to serve his country and how he believed he could reach the youth in ways no politician could. At one point, Elvis pulled out a collection of family photos to show Nixon. These are my parents, he said, pointing to a picture. And this is my wife, Priscilla. She's a real beauty, ain't she? Nixon nodded awkwardly, unsure how to respond. The moment Elvis had been waiting for finally arrived. Mr. President, he said earnestly, what I really need is a federal narcotics badge. With that badge, I'll have the credentials to go anywhere I need to in the fight against drugs. Nixon hesitated. A narcotics badge for Elvis Presley. But seeing the determination in Elvis's eyes, and perhaps wanting to end the meeting, he relented. Get him the badge, Nixon said to an aide. Elvis's face lit up. He had gotten exactly what he wanted. The now famous photo of Nixon and Elvis shaking hands, with Elvis decked out in his flamboyant attire, became the most requested image in the National Archives, even surpassing pictures of the moon landing. As for Elvis's career as a federal agent at large, there's no evidence he ever used the badge for official purposes. But for him, it was a prized possession, and he carried it with him everywhere. This meeting was a perfect reflection of Elvis's larger-than-life persona. It showed his unique blend of sincerity, eccentricity, and charisma. It was also a reminder that even a king sometimes wants to feel like a hero. Elvis Presley's meeting with Richard Nixon is a story that's equal parts bizarre and hilarious, but it also reveals something deeper. A man who genuinely wanted to make a difference in his own unique way. It's a moment that could only happen in America. and it remains one of the strangest yet most iconic episodes in pop culture history.